Neighbor wanted the fence fix, we just removed the fence. Too long did not read. At bottom. This happened to my friend a couple months ago. Him and his wife just moved into their first house about 6 months ago. Then a strong windstorm came through and damaged their fence. And by damaged their fence I mean the fence was now leaning slightly, leaning about 70 degrees. Because home insurance won't fix the fence plus it being winter. My friend and his wife were going to wait until spring to hire someone to replace their fence. Well, their backyard neighbor did not like that. The backyard neighbor wanted the fence fix ASAP. When the neighbor found out they were going to wait until spring, the neighbor called the city and complained that their fence was out of code. When the city inspector came out to inspect their fence, it was in fact out of code and needed to be corrected. Now the reason the neighbor was so fixated on the fence being replaced is because the neighbor has a pool in their yard and need to have a fence around their pool for safety. Well, my friend and his wife, now pissed off at their neighbor, decided to only remove the fence and not replace it. This allows them to be in city code, and now when the spring hits, the neighbor is going to need to build a fence on their backside of their yard if they want to fill up their pool for the summer. If the neighbor would have just been nice and not called the city like a Karen, my friend would have built the fence up in the spring. Now problem. Too long did not read. Wind damaged friend's fence, friend was going to fix it in the spring. Backyard neighbor wanted it fixed now and called the city. Friend just removed fence instead and neighbor has no fence on their backside of yard. This is great. Make sure your friend knows to request the neighbor pay for a survey of the property line before fence building starts. Edit to add. Please update us on this when the new fence drama starts. I hope the neighbors calls the city to report the pool without fence and possibly make them repair it during the winter. Winking face. Make sure your friend calls the neighbor's insurance company. Huge liability not having a fence around that pool. Not likely that they will have it in place before they want to use the pool. Always seems we get a heat wave out of the blue. Did your friends post about this on Reddit, because I feel like I read a very similar story within the last few months lol. Amazing. I did something similar. Neighbors had broken fence gate to the main road, and when my dog was in heat, other dogs wanted to go to her. Our fence was good, but neighbors wasn't, so they get into their yard and then damage the wire mesh and go to our property. Of course, neighbors were angry and blamed us for that and wanted not just fix, but whole new fence in that few meters. We understandably didn't want to let other dogs to our property, so I just built a little wall from full breeze blocks about 10 centimeters from the damaged fence. Neighbors were angry and I was happy. I'm with the neighbor here. Your friend's insurance is at fault. The entitlement. Fix your fence so I can enjoy my space. Your friends aren't required to provide free fences for the neighbors, especially if they have a pool. If the fence is on your friend's side, they can take it down anytime and not replace it. If the neighbor is unhappy, they can put their own up on their side. On the property line, both owners have to agree. This is why it's better to be polite and share the responsibility. Now the entire structure goes on the neighbor's side, which eats up a lot of space and he has to pay for it. Yeah, nah. If even the council says it was out of code and needed to be fixed ASAP, then your friend should have had it fixed ASAP. I don't think the neighbor asking for it to be fixed in a timely manner was a dick move. Good fences make good neighbors. Mending fences with a neighbor is a 50-50 ordeal depending on exact location of the fence and local property ordinance. Where I live, your friends would be replacing the fence they took down. That or paying their neighbor for his half of the property that was destroyed. Would _have_ couple _of_. Sounds like the friend is cheap, or they would fix their problem now, not later when it's convenient for them. Meh nah. That's just being petty. This is how neighbor disputes begin. They end with someone getting killed. Leaning 70 degrees from an upright position would put you like 10 inches from the ground. What if they had a dog that could get loose? Your friend is irresponsible. Usually fences are considered shared property. Now friend needs to call city and report the neighbor for not having a fenced-in pool. Freedom is living in a country where if you buy and own a house, its fencing is still dictated to you by the city you live in. Would've is short for would have, not would of. Great job. Now just sit back and watch your neighbors crap themselves. 1. Not being able to open the pool. 2. Paying for an entire new fence. Good for you. OMG, that's awesome. Personally, I would call the city code compliance about a pool, even if it's empty, without a safety fence around it. #would've. Make sure they call the inspector like this week. That shitty neighbor still is in violation regardless of the season. The neighbor wanted to prevent his property from being out of code for his backyard pool, so he went about it in a way that created what he was in fear of. He never once empathized with the neighbors and let them fix it when they were able to. So, he got what he deserved. Never pays to be a dick. Neighbor. A slight 70-degree lean. And by damaged their fence I mean the fence was now leaning slightly, leaning about 70 degrees. Is this sarcastic? 70 degrees is not a slight lean. This is a wonderful post. Well done sticking it to that shitty neighbor. My back neighbor removed his fence due to rot and sold the house. Now I have to come up with 93 female to replace it. Oh well, I had free fence for 16 years. Wait, they have a pool and no fence currently around it. They are out of code, they need to get that corrected ASAP. This is a repost and I don't think this is the original poster. Which in my opinion would have made a repost okay. This is instead plagiarized. My parents have a recessed footpath between their backyard and their neighbor's yard. That footpath is about 3.5 feet lower than my parents' backyard and probably around 6 feet lower than their neighbor's yard. One of their neighbors complained about the living fence my parents had, growing on their land but from the height of the footpath, being too high and out of code. Now they were planning to do something but that guy was harassing them and threatening to sue. Now that whole neighborhood will get to look at a cold, ugly fence, concrete blocks up to about 4 feet and then a metal fence on top. All because my parents had to do it as a rush job and didn't get to save up for a nicer fence, wall combo. Give us an update how the neighbor deals with it lol. Should have just did what we did and completely knocked down the fence, claiming the storm did it. Make your insurance work for you. Not the other way around. I am not sure different state rules, but I used to be a fence installer and in my state, neighboring one, you could not have the wood fence for a neighbor be used for the opposite neighbor's house, since you can easily climb the inside of the horizontal posts on a wood fence to get over that fence. I believe something along those lines, so your neighbor should be double fucked, and call the city on him now because that's a major safety issue that's worse than a leaning fence. He will have to shell out money now for a fence and pay more since it's winter LMAO. Fixed. Fixed. Sorry, I just had to get that out of my system. I'd call code compliance too, if my neighbor's broken fence was leaning into my property, especially if they didn't intend on fixing it for months. I imagine the neighbor is hand-wringing and asking himself when your friend is going to replace the fence. Were I your friend, I would replace the fence as soon as the neighbor had to erect one of his own in order to enjoy his pool. Why wait until spring? Call now. They have a pool and no fence. It doesn't need to be a full pool, it's a hazard now. They need to have a fence 24/7. Not just in usual pool weather. Report it, they will need to either get rid of their pool, or put up their own fence. Could have had a bit of petty revenge if right after removing the fence, they filed a complaint about the pool not being fenced in. Had to check to see if this was Ameth arsehole. Before I built a wall I'd ask to know what I was walling in or walling out, the mending wall Robert Frost. Free friends, noise. Isn't a fence a shared cost? Two neighbors who will now be enemies for life. Wanted the fence fixed. Him just moved. Ameth arsehole.